Derek, what are you doing, man?
Oh, hey. Uh, well, I knew we were going to do a podcast about a checklist
Yeah,
for getting ready for a Friday night football game, and so I thought I'd make my own list. I think it's pretty comprehensive what I've got. You want to hear it?
sure.
All right.
What you got?
Step one: get on the bus. Step two: go to the game.
That sounds good to me, man.
Awesome. I didn't think it was going to be that hard.
That's pretty much my checklist. My very first ball game of my career. Things didn't go so well.
How is Mike Lenny today?
Well, I'm doing great, man. Just good to be alive.
I agree. So, listen, I think this is uh, when we first said, "Hey, Mike Lenny, how do we get ready for a football game?" I have to be honest. At first, I thought, "Man, how hard can this be?" And I don't listen. I don't think it's necessarily hard,
No.
but will the voice of experience share with us this? There might be some things you didn't think about. It'd be
Oh
good
yeah.
to have this opportunity for you to share. So we're asking Mike, what do we need to do to get ready for a Friday night football game?
All right, cool. Yeah, yeah, much like your original list you talked about when you were messing around. Um, I was in Throckmorton, Texas as a band director, and our first game was in Holly. Out of
Okay.
town game was the very first game. And your list of get on the bus, get off the bus, play, get back on the bus was pretty much all I had done. I mean, I'd done a few more things, but boy, it was a disaster, and on my part, I hadn't even figured about how to get if parents wanted to take their kid after a game. What do we do with the football players' horns? I'll just, so over the course of time, I've just kind of put together a list, and I kind of want to go through some of these things for the directors out there that might just want a list. And by the way, Derek Rick said he was going to put this on the on the on the podcast for the on the I can't even think this morning. Sorry, on the Intune to so they can download the list.
Right. I think that we have created a PDF file. We'll
Yes,
have it on our website. Rick's going to put the Rick in the chair. He's going to put our URL on the bottom of the screen or wherever he puts it. He's the fancy pants,
that's
you
right.
know, electronic. Or what am I trying to say? Tech guy. Man, we are both having trouble finding words today, aren't we?
We are, man. Need more coffee. Here we go. We got to get this going.
So,
People are going to turn us off already.
so he's going to put that on the screen. You can download this. It's a list that
Yes.
has been compiled by the esteemed Mike Lenny.
Yeah.
And listen, why why wouldn't you do that? Even if you think you got it wired, look at somebody else's list. You might find yourself going, "Huh, didn't think of that."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cool. And while we're talking about things on the screen, this is the email address. If you have a question you want to ask Mike at intunemusic.com. So I went video all of a sudden, started pointing at the bottom of the screen. For those of you listening, it's ask Mike at intunemusic.com. That's intunemusic.com. So cool. Back to our list.
Yes, sir.
So does this list start day of travel? He said with a wink.
Yeah. Something needs to be set up way before that first travel, way before. And in
What?
fact, for the people out there, if you want this list in the form of a Word document, just send me an email at Ask Mike, and I can send you the Word document. That way, you can erase what you don't want and add what you want. The
Hey, that's
PDF is
cool.
great, but the PDF sometimes it kind of locks you in. You have to retype the whole thing. Okay, but yeah, I'm going to start with if it's your first year at a school. First year at
Okay.
whatever job, not your first year teaching necessarily, but you said a new job, said meet with a trusted parent and a couple of trusted students that you can find to see how these items were handled last year. Decide what
Or
is
if.
yeah, decide what is actually tradition and should continue and figure out what you must change. I always like to say figure out what the kids are trying to pull over on you. So that's not how we did it, Mr. Lunny. This is how it was tradition. So only change what you feel compelled if the program is established. You
And
know,
we've talked several times about how smart kids are and are
yeah.
getting smarter. So
Oh
the
yeah.
pranks have elevated as well.
Oh yeah, I think that it had nothing to do with travel, but a young man by the name of Hayes Lowe, who's now no longer a young man, he was actually a trumpet player in the electro band. And when I got there, he just decided to pick up tenors, drums, and he never
Just
told
that's what he
me.
played now, huh?
That's what he played for the. He was a percussionist the rest of the time. His senior year, he goes, "Mr. Lane, you realize I was not a drummer." So yeah, yeah, kids are smart. You know, they can figure things out. So Hayes Lowe, if you're out there somewhere somehow listening to this, dang you. Okay. um, but but you know, and if it's something that if you're in a total rebuild thing, just rip off the band-aid and do your thing. You know, just tell
Yeah.
them I don't care what happened last year. Okay. The first thing is this is the list in the order and how I do it. Run through the season schedule to confirm game times because that can change this time of year. You know, they'll
Right.
decide it was a 7:30 start to a 7, and that really kicks into effect because that new wet bulb globe temperature. You know, it says there in the guidelines that in football games they can change the time of the start of the game to accommodate the temperature and the heat stress. So
Okay.
that
So
that might
I'm
be
going
a
to jump
last
in here
minute
real
thing.
quick.
Yeah, go for it, man.
You're hearkening back to an episode that we've done about how to handle marching band and all other UIL
Right.
things with the heat. Say that name again, a wet bulb,
Wet bulb globe temperature.
which is what they use to determine.
Oh yeah,
And so there's a device you can get it lots of places. We
yeah,
showed it on that episode if you want to check that back out. But so they can vary the start time of a football game on a Friday night here in August and September based on the wet bulb temperature reading.
exactly. You know, they
Okay.
can say instead of 7, we're going to go 8 o'clock. You know, I'm thinking generally they'll go later. You know, in
So
that situation.
but the point you made was go through the calendar, look at possible uh, times or things that might happen to influence the schedules.
Right. That's exactly
Okay.
right. Okay. And the next thing on the list, make sure parents understand what they can and cannot do while you're in the stands in relation to their students, to their children, you know, because they'll show up and they want to bring them food and Red Bulls and you know, things like that, or you know, just make sure they understand what's going on with that. Because I know we kind of giggle about it, but you probably would not be surprised how many parents, if they don't know, they'll just show up with a whole meal from Burger King first quarter and traipse up through the stands and be moving hat boxes out of the way to get to
Right.
their child to help them out. Also establish with the parents with school policy, can they get the kids after the game? How do they sign them
Right.
out? What's the process for that? Some schools don't allow it. Some schools say
Right.
if you travel to an event, you must come back with the group after the event. Every school I've been at, you could sign out kids, but just make sure check with the admin on that.
Sure. I'm sure there's permission slips and or release forms that have to be filled out.
Yeah, yeah, just to make sure it's all the communication happens there. And then next, communicate to the students your expectations for them in the stands, because we as band directors were, for the most part, the good band kids.
Right.
When we were in high school. So we just really we would like playing our horn. We liked going to the game. We wanted to play our drum, whatever the case might be. There's kids in our band that are great band students, but they're there for the just to watch the game and have a good time. And so just have your expectations set out. And that could be a whole nother podcast unto itself. But what is our behavior in the stands? When are we expected to play? We should stay in our spot at all times unless you raise your hand and someone calls you to the front. You know, whatever our procedure is, make sure the kids know, because if you just assume that they know how they're supposed to do things procedurally in the stands, you're in for a long evening. You
Right.
know, they'll
Can I
be
ask you a
inviting.
question?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. This is, and you may have this later on the list, but it strikes me as part of behavior in the stands. I just want your opinion. Uniforms in the stands.
Yeah, there's definitely about 6 different camps on that. With with me, there was times we would have our bibbers on and take our jackets off and lay them over the hat box. First 2 or 3 games of the year, towards the end of my career, uh, we would just wear like our what we called our travel uniform. It was like black athletic shorts and a purple band shirt, and that
Right.
was what
Spirit
we
shirt.
wore. Yeah, we wore that at halftime. You know what I mean? We just wore that the whole game because.
I
But
agree.
then there's others. You know that, and I respect all camps. You got to do what you got to do that you think is right. But a good friend of mine who had an incredible marching band, his answer to kids when they said, "Are we wearing our uniforms?" was, the football team, are they wearing their uniforms?
Right.
That was always his response. And I can respect that. But yeah, for me, it just kind of had to do with it, rain chances, heat stress. Early in the year, the sun's still up. And if you're the visiting team, the sun's in your face and you're kind of like those hot dogs that all sips on the little roller thing. Yeah. You just kind of sizzle and grill, until halftime. And later on,
So
later
I
on,
was going to agree with you. I think we've gotten smarter, and we talked about this in the
yeah,
in the heat episode.
yeah.
Because I used to wear basically a suit jacket, the undergarment shirt, an overlay, and
Mhm.
and you may have been in the same time period. If
Oh
we're
yeah,
going to be in the stands, we're going to be in uniform,
that's right. That's right.
complete uniform.
Yeah.
So
And it's kind of an old school thought at this time because now it's more two things. One, cleaning the uniforms,
right.
and the other thing is just the keeping the students safe,
They
where
do
they're
kind
not
of
passing
develop
out.
a rich aromatic blend. If
They do is a Febreze. I think we kept Febreze in business for many a year at Wiley High School. I think we had cases of that stuff and just cover it up, man. Cover it up.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'm going to get you back on track. I'm sorry. I just thought
All
that
right.
was part
Sorry.
of behavior in the stands.
Yeah,
So,
it is. It is because you're exactly right. Because kids would just take off their jacket because they were hot, but we all do it the same. You know what I mean? If we
right,
all have our jacket off, then we all have our jacket off. We don't,
right.
All right. So the next thing I would say, stadium location and address for away games. Um, Obviously for the people going, because we got to know where we're going. But
Sure.
communicate that to the parents and the school drivers, because don't assume that they're just going to follow the leader, because they'll get lost in traffic or something will happen. Or sometimes you get a bus driver that he knows a better way.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he'll just take off, that's always a bad situation. But,
I
get
don't
that.
need GPS.
That's right. I've been to Bowie, Texas a million times. Okay. So, but it'll save you a lot of random communication with parents panicking and going, saying, where you at? Where you doing? Where's the band going to be? Where you going to park? Just go ahead and set that all up. I used to always on an email blast have like a map of the stadium showing exactly where we were parking and everything. So the parents didn't have to worry about anything. They could always just look at that. Okay.
And Mike,
Um,
I think some districts will tell you if you say, "Hey, where do you want our buses to be the closest place to get us into the stands?" They kind of have that mapped out.
Yeah, in fact, we're at an age with all this wonderful technology where pretty much every game I went to, old school directors called each other. You'd call the
Right.
guy or lady come into your school and say, "Hey, this is what we're doing," blah blah blah. Now it's sent out as a big packet. Like I had about a 10-page packet that I emailed, and then I still called because I was still old school. But that packet contained all that information. How you
Right.
could get concessions, where to park, all that kind of stuff. Just make sure to relay that on to the other people. Okay. And the
Right.
next one's real super important, I think. First aid kits. We kind of buy them and then we don't check them. So especially at the first of the year, make sure you restock your first aid kit. You don't know who's opened that thing. There should be
Right.
one for each bus and items for any gender might need, and also gloves for anyone who might be administering care. Check for expiration dates and invest in a quality kit. Have more than you think you need available. I mean, we can't really plan for the worst case scenario. You know what I mean? There's some out there that we've had bus wrecks and things like that. You're not going to be able to stock that kind of equipment and material and have people with that training on board. But I've gone on trips, kind of seen other schools first aid kits sometimes. It's those little tiny ones you buy like at HEB,
Right.
and I think that's better than nothing. But have a few other items in there,
So,
invest in a bigger kit.
is there anything particular to band? And I have one that I'm going to bring up if you don't, that you would include in a first aid kit that might not come in at stock from Walmart, Academy, wherever you buy it.
Yeah. For me, it seemed like we always went through some sort of waterproof Band-Aids. You know what I mean? They'd cut themselves or they'd take their shoes off on the bus and slice open their big toe, kicking something. Yeah, yeah. It's like a circus on wheels, man.
You
And
say
do
they,
this.
you mean the trombones.
Yeah, no, I mean the band staff. But just
That's funny.
things like that. Things that can, I hate to be so gross, things that can stop bleeding. You know what I
Right.
mean? Some gauze.
I
Usually, they don't
do.
put a whole lot of gauze. And you can get yourself cut pretty bad. And it's not just on the bus; it's at the game on the stands.
Right.
Usually, I would pack a couple of extra little, kind of those compression knee things, things like that, because a kid would twist their leg or something, and I'm sure it helped a little bit. Maybe the placebo effect is kind of good too.
Sure.
They feel like someone's taking care of them. But with a guy that has a bad left knee, now I believe in those. At the time, I thought it was just whatever. But
So
but it's important they feel cared for.
I would also say some eye wash.
Yeah.
I can't listen. This is true story. I can't tell you how many times kids get valve oil in their eyes.
Yes. Yes. And I'll add
So,
to that contact solution. You can buy
right.
those little breakaway kits for typical contact solution. But yeah, that I didn't think about that in terms, but those were in my kit. Yeah, but that didn't
Right.
come to mind when you asked that question. That's really important because they'll do some weird stuff. They'll work
It's
at some.
amazing.
They'll just rub their eye, and all of a sudden they're like their eyes bright red, and you got to help them out
Well,
somehow. You can't just
if
go
my
rub some dirt in it.
if my good friend's listening, he'll laugh. No names, but I've seen a valve oil fight in the stands.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've uh, I've participated in those as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to me real quick about like aspirin, Advil, legal not most of the time.
Depends on how the school wants to handle it. I like to say, try to see in your band parent clientele if there's some sort of medical professional available. Now, I was
Right.
lucky enough that in the bigger schools that there was usually a nurse or someone that wanted to ride the bus, and they could take care of medicines that were like ADHD, things of that nature that
No,
were more
right.
serious.
Prescriptions. Right.
Prescriptions. So they took care of that. If you don't have a medical professional, you got to do it yourself. Yeah, you don't want the kids to be carrying all that stuff with them. Just for obvious reasons. But yeah, to your original question though, our kids filled out, or they did their band form, and on that form the parents signed, they checked off it was okay to give Tylenol or okay to give
Right.
Pepto-Bismol, because some kids are allergic. I mean, you could have a deathly reaction to Pepto-Bismol, because just an aspirin kind of thing. So we would always have those. We had a hard copy of all the medical forms on every bus in a briefcase, and then we also had it electronically where they could pull it up on a password protected app. So
Okay.
we get into privacy issues and things like that, but as long as you go according to what your school says and your principals say and what your what your common sense says, then you're going to be fine. But it's always nice to have a little bit of aspirin if a kid needs it, or a Tylenol or whatever their parent, and all it takes is pull out your phone and oh yeah, they can take a leave. So
Right.
we kept that, and I was lucky enough that the school probably would have paid for it, but the band parent organization at most schools, they kind of enjoyed paying for that. They felt like they were taking care of their kids.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was their kids. So I would say, well, I think the school paid. No, 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 we got it, Mr. Laney. We'll go down to Sam's and get this, and they get those big old bulk ones. And they put them in smaller containers. So
Sure.
if you have that luxury, go for it. Okay.
Okay.
The next one, establish some sort of inspection time. After you get into uniform, whatever uniform you're using for that day, have your equipment, you're getting ready to get in the stands. Um, not having the right color or length of socks, things like that should not be permitted. We'd have extra socks, we'd have extra gloves, we'd have whatever, or any other part that needs to be uniform or specific. And there's going to be things slide through. I mean, some kid's going to, we can go into 1,000 stories of kids who forgot things, but the uniform has to be uniform. I think the only story I'll throw in on that is I went to Disney World with my band one particular year, and one tuba player did not have their black pants inside their uniform bag. And it really wasn't that tuba player's fault. It was because we supposedly checked all the uniforms. All the uniforms are stored at school. And so he was sitting there. Meanwhile, I'm in my coat and tie because it's Disney World and I have to be with the band during Disney World. So I looked at this young man and I go, what size pants you wear? He told me, well, these will be a little bit big, but give me your band shorts. And so I had changed out of my suit, put on the shorts and my band shirt, and I couldn't go on the parade. I just went and watched the parade, but at least he got to march the parade, use my
Right.
black suit pants, so you do what you got to do. Another important one, instruct your seniors, especially no hazing of the freshmen. you know, because they'll have all kinds of little things that traditionally have built up. We had a thing for the longest time that it's kind of stupid. The freshmen would get their plumes, and then the upperclassmen would tell them if it was a boy, said, "Oh no, no, your plume's on backwards." And they'd make them switch. Another senior to go, "Oh no, that's a female plume. You're supposed to have a male plume," and so the bus moms were in on it because they handed out the plumes. Oh, you know, and it was all in good fun. But in an age in which there's gender fluid individuals and things of that nature, something as simple as that was funny at the time might not be so funny when you're called into the principal's office, and ask, why are your kids doing this? So be careful. Hazing in any form is wrong, and that could be a whole nother podcast, couldn't it? With hazing, because when I was in high school band, hazing was the norm.
Right.
That's what we did, but that doesn't make it right though. But you got to kind of figure that out.
I'm going to say, I would speak to, I just felt the collective eye roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it's easy to roll your eyes until you're the one getting called on it.
Yeah, it's fun until someone gets upset, or it's fun until someone gets hurt in some sort of hazing. They're stuck in a tuba case.
Easier to say don't do it instead of trying to figure out where the line is.
Yeah, yeah, and just and tell them that, guys, if you participate in any sort of hazing, your consequence will be much, much stiffer than that fun of that hazing would have ever been.
Right.
So I've had kids that told a freshman they had to get inside a tuba anvil case, and they loaded him on the deal, and he was pounding on it. They let him out, and it was real quick, but still, just think of how horrible that'd have been if they'd have left him on the trailer for a 2-hour trip. The kid could have died.
Right.
And they don't think about that. I mean, I don't think my brain's actually developed at 61, but I guarantee 18-year-old brains are not developed. They just think of the immediate, hey, this is cool, let's do this.
Yeah, there's truth to the reasoning doesn't develop in the male gender until much later.
Yeah, until about a minute before death, I think.
You're saying I was mid-30s at least.
Yeah. I'm still working on it myself. Something that we tend to forget if you're not careful, because with all the stuff going on, if it's a home game, make sure to run the national anthem. If you're at a home game,
Okay.
Run through it before you go out there, before you go into the stands. This cannot sound bad. I'm not saying it has to be perfect all the time, but oh my gosh, every person across the stands judges your band not by your halftime show, but by your national anthem. They really
Right.
do. So be careful of that. And we used to, or go ahead. You look like you had something.
No, I was going to say there's enough familiarity with that particular. I mean, everybody knows it.
Oh yeah. And to me, it's a sacred piece of music.
As me as well.
Yeah.
But
So
if you're interested in one thing that every person in the stands will go, ooh.
exactly. And how many times, band directors out there, have you been in the stands and listened to the opposing band, and you have to tell your kids to quit because they start snickering and laughing and making faces, and so that's a whole nother thing about expectation in the stands. We stand at attention during the national anthem. We stand at attention during the other school song. But that's hard to do when they're just fracking notes left and right, and their band's 2 measures apart from each other, and the cymbals are 1 beat away from where they're supposed to be, and it just sounds almost like a parody, like Weird Al Yankovic's national anthem or something.
Sorry, you just taught me a new word, so that was great. Fracking it up.
Fracking it up, man. The things you can say out loud that the kids go, "Was that dirty?" Yeah. Quit fracking up the show, man. Quit fracking. But another item, we used to, as a joke, I would print out this list of, it was like, I'd put it on my office door on game day, and it just had, basically, if you have a question, ask a section leader, ask a senior, ask one. And at the end, it said, if you still can't find an answer, go ask your mother. If your mother doesn't know and the student's not on fire, it's really not that important anyway. It's something of that. But I know directors who really think that's really stupid and kind of whatever. But what I did to preface that, though, I got a kick out of doing that. But I also equipped my leaders to answer the questions. I would do all the traditional questions that would come up, and I'd print them out. In the old days, I'd give them a handout. Nowadays, I just send them a a message, say, these are the things freshmen are going to ask you. Said, here's
Right.
the answers. You know,
That's smart. Good for you.
yeah. One thing that's hard to get the kids not to do and hard to get me not to do, expectations. We never boo at any call on the field. You know, we can't just sit up there and boo, boo, stupid ref, you know. If that sort of happens, then you kind of call them down, and we're humans. We kind of react to a bad call kind of thing. But you're looking at a person right now who's been called for unsportsmanlike conduct at a football
Dare
game
say,
by
there's
name
no way
over
I,
the PA.
no way I could follow that rule.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I was in Snyder and I got a 15-yard penalty for my band playing too loud and interrupting the flow of play. And the ref called me out by name, said, unsportsmanlike conduct, Mike Lenny, director of Wiley Band, 15-yard penalty.
Did the coach look at you?
Well, we were ahead like 40-0. So
Okay.
so he just kind of laughed it off. But if it had been a close game,
Bet. Yeah.
but then there was nothing that combined, once they called that penalty on us, our 2,000 fans just went berserk. It
Yeah.
was louder than any band playing. Following along those lines, we're reverent when necessary. If there's a prayer, a moment of silence, Star Spangled Banner, other schools band song, just kind of that falls under expectations. Make sure you have a repair kit. Include small screwdrivers, some assorted tools, some that you think you wouldn't even need. A big old pipe wrench. I've used a pipe wrench to open up a muffler pipe on a bus because the bus wouldn't start because the bus driver had crushed it. And so I had to take the pipe wrench and go. So have some assorted tools in there. Mouthpiece puller, extra mouthpieces, reeds, oils, grease. I always like to travel with a few extra junker horns in case a student forgot their horn or something weird happened.
Yeah.
Those junkers just stayed on the trailer for eventual use. They were not even playable instruments.
Right. But you could hold it and march your spot. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a clarinet without pads, but all those had like red tape on the handles. So the load crew know the red tape instruments, they just stay on the trailer until, the second coming. Okay. The next thing is, and I think this is really important, replace all the batteries and everything that needs batteries before every football game. It is worth the extra cost. Do it.
Right.
And a lot of guys use rechargeable batteries to save money, but whatever you use, don't wait till the batteries run out. Just pull them out and throw them away. If they're like non-rechargeable, or just rotate the stock. Okay.
So that's also probably a good thought in your budgets.
Oh,
Go ahead and think about batteries for marching season.
Yeah. And that was in the days of the Walkman. You remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
And boom boxes. That was a highly cherished item in the band. I had to keep those under lock and key because kids would sneak those out. I think I'll just take two of them. There's a whole drawer full of these, But nowadays you hand a kid a battery, they go, "What's this for?"
What battery?
Batteries. What's a battery for? Check with who's announcing. Might even be you, for who knows. I don't know. Check with who's announcing. Might be the director and who's writing the script. Phonetic spellings are fine. You can do it.
Actually, as an announcer, listen, I'm one of those people that think I'm smart until I'm not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
I'm with you.
One time, and I'll even take it out of the band world. I was doing a baseball game, a minor league baseball game.
Yeah.
And the actual player at the plate looked up at me and screamed, "That's not how you say it."
That's funny. I tell you,
I was embarrassed.
Yeah, but it's his fault for having a difficult name. But in my situation, I would always put Mike Lenny and then parentheses rhymes with money. That way the announcer would know. But that was announced at area marching one year under the direction of Mike Lenny, rhymes with money. My parents gave me hell forever on that one. Rhymes with money.
For people that don't know, my wife's name is Sharana. And I always say, like piranha. But it's so she's been Sharana Piranha a lot of places.
Sharana Piranha, yeah. You do what you got to do to try to make it right. Make sure that according to your school traditions and whatever you do, select or have band members select the marchers of the week, the section of the week, the academic teacher of the week, if you do those kind of things. At one time, we used to give like a coffee mug. The kids would vote on who their favorite teacher was in the high school, and it was good PR and really nice coffee mugs, by the way. But if you do that kind of stuff, do not wait until you're lining up to go in the stands. Go, oh man, we haven't selected the teacher. Who votes for Miss So and So?
Right.
Get all that done. Now just do like Survey Monkey or something. Get all that done electronically before you have to do it.
And if you put that on your script for halftime, you got to have it done before you go in.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully your announcer has a script before halftime.
Yeah, I'm saying this mainly for those guys. Like I used to have to do my own announcing in 1A, 2A, and I'd be doing my script on the bus.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because you had all the elementary music and everything else. So, get that done in advance. But you're right. If you have a real announcer, they'll probably want that 2, 3 days in advance, so they can at least ask questions and say, how do you pronounce this name? Yeah.
When I did it for certain groups for the entire season, it was a template, and we just filled in the blanks. Yeah. So I had the script the whole season, but I just had to know what names went in the blanks.
That's right.
And
there
were several times it was, hey man, listen, the visiting team's on the field right now. We need to fill out these blanks before you guys hit the field.
Yeah, that's right. I need some names. Or I'm going to pull up the 1904 Red Sox or something. Just start inserting
the
names.
Stooges are going to win all the awards.
That's right. We're just going to give it to them all. Okay. Make sure to go over to your kids' concession stand and restroom guidelines. Some schools do it where, the section leaders dismiss one kid at a time from their section. They take care of that, and the kid goes to the restroom and comes back. Some station parents along the route, and the band director sends the kid, and they have to go through just to make sure they're not meeting up with a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Sure.
Or they're going out to their car to smoke a cigarette or whatever. So kids are kids, man. Trust but verify. Trust but verify. So just make sure they know that. What can they have in the stands? Can they have water? Can they have Gatorade? Can they have snacks during third quarter? Every band's different. Just make sure you get that expectation, or you're going to have kids bring like a HEB sack full of snacks and pull them up in the stands with a 6-pack of Red Bulls, and off we go, man. So make sure you do that.
And back to your earlier point, in the age of vaping, you got to know what to look for and be on alert.
Yeah. It's a constant battle. 99% of the kids are not, in my experience, did not give me a problem. They just wanted to be in band. It's that 1 or 2% that they just drive you crazy because they're always looking for a loophole and some way to get around it. Okay. Another one, if you're lucky enough to have a staff, because I know I was a one-person gig for about 7 years when I first started. If you do have a staff, give them assignments. Don't assume they will read your mind, because if I want my percussion guy or percussion lady in the stands the whole time with the percussion, it's probably pretty good to tell them that beforehand instead of making some sort of scene. Or I guess I'll put it this way. I always disliked ordering my staff in front of the band.
Right. It was so simple just to have that conversation and have a meeting ahead of time.
Yeah, it's and I know directors who operate that way, and that's cool. You do your thing. I've heard directors scream at a staff member to go get batteries. I need batteries now, quick, go. I've heard, and I'm thinking, why didn't you just change the batteries before you came, or why didn't you just talk to your people? If you want someone, I need you to be between the restroom and the bandstand first and fourth quarter. And you need to be watching kids as they come by. Whatever the assignment is, who gets the podiums to the field? I need you to get a couple of parents. Can you get a couple of parents to help us haul the podium so the drum majors don't have to haul their podium to the field? Go ahead and have that. And once you get past that first home or away ball game, or that duo, is on away and a home. Once you get past that, everyone kind of knows what they're supposed to do. Okay. There's nothing worse than a staff that are all staring at each other like, who gets the sound equipment? But what do we do at halftime? And if they're first year teachers, man, you've got to meet with them and instruct them. The biggest problem is kind of thinking, hey, man, they should know what they've got a college degree. They should know what they're supposed to do. No, they shouldn't, because it's different at every school. It's not like teaching trumpet. Okay. Equipment and prop assignments for students and parents, because we're in the age of props, my friend. And there's lots of equipment. We haul 53-foot semi-trailers full of equipment to games now. Who does what and where does it go? I always attached maps on the back of props with the field set point.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
it was duct taped on the back. So if a new parent was helping out, they could look at it and go, 40-yard line, this side of the field, 8 steps behind the front hash. Instead of where does it go kind of thing.
Right.
So we would just do that. And that helped kids day to day when we used it. Where's power for front ensemble coming from? Is there an outlet? Do we use a generator? Do we use a battery box? Some kind of device. If it is an outlet, double check if you're in a away game. Better check that sucker out. I would always take my phone charger and my phone, and I'd walk to where during first quarter to wherever the power outlet was, and I'd plug in that charger and plug in my ba-ting. We're good. We have power,
Yeah.
But then later on, we just used our own. We had used our own power. Loading and unloading, check this out with your load crew, safety implications, especially when the sun goes down. Lighting, do you have gloves for them? Do you use cones? Set up cones around your trailer so a random kid from the other school doesn't, not being nefarious, but just drives through your load setup,
Right.
because they just think it's a parking lot. Now, I've seen schools use reflective vest for their kids. I've seen schools use overalls, coveralls for their load crew. I've seen even kids are using hard hats inside the trailer when there's lots of equipment hung on the walls. You do you know what I mean? Whatever you need to do to feel safe for your kids. And I say, especially out of all that list, the lighting and the cones. Lighting
Right.
and cones. Make sure there's enough lighting where everyone can see what's happening. Okay. Same thing with the load crew. Meet with those guys. Discuss a checklist of items they'll be responsible for taking off out of the band hall and loading up. In our situation inside our band hall, we had a load zone that was masked off with masking tape. And the band students had to get their equipment inside that load zone. Anything inside the load zone went on the trailer. Then the students would check. The load crew would check with their list. And if something was missing, they would go find it. But then that student who did not put their equipment correctly would have some sort of consequence.
Sure.
That was kind of a fail safe for us. But even with load crew, there was times I'd make the mistake of getting on the trailer because I had nothing else to do, and I was going to help them out. And they'd go, "Mr. Laney, can you? You're kind of in the way. Could you go do some band director? There some kind of band director thing you can do. Call the superintendent, whatever." So, yeah. As it got time, I guess my 19th year at Wiley, I had no earthly idea how they loaded, when they loaded, how they put it on the trailer, how they locked it down. They just passed it on like one tribe to another. As the next load crew came up, the load crew chief gave all the stuff to the new load crew chief. So load crew is a cool thing. Those kids really love their job, and I really love them loving their job because I had a load zone area in my office for my stuff. And the load crew chief was responsible for that. Anything I put inside that masking tape, he'd just walk in and look and go, shunk, and he'd take all my stuff. And then at the game, he'd put it in front of the bandstand, so that way we're all not going, where's the speaker? Where's the whatever,
Yeah, my high school, it was a pretty big honor to wear those coveralls, and they had their own cheers and their own. I mean, they were almost a fraternity within the band. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, and a lot of those kids, they kind of enjoyed load crew more than they did making music.
Exactly.
They did. Some were really good players, but some weren't very good players, but they were amazing band students. They played their part, don't get me wrong, but they really loved load crew. They loved load
Absolutely.
Crew. Okay. Hey, when you get to the game, if it's an away game or if it's a home game, go meet the other director, be proactive, discuss field logistics with other groups. Drill team, cheer, band across the field. What side are you entering from? If you're the first band to perform, where are you exiting? So we don't just run into each other. We go into those embarrassing situations where we're all trying to cross the sideline at the same time. Just check all that out. Drill team especially, and the band across the field. And we talked about this earlier. Just make sure emergency contacts. We talked about student medical forms. An important one. This is sounds real simplistic, but it is important. Realize and know which admin member you're supposed to call if something important happens.
Right. And make sure everybody knows it. Yeah.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, you can't wait till something happens and go, I wonder if I call the assistant soup, the superintendent, the assistant principal, the principal. Who do I call? And they'll tell you, no, you call this person. He's the assistant principal in charge of students, and that's the person you call, and then we bump it up the chain from there. So make sure you have that as a speed dial on your phone. Just make sure who you're supposed to call, because I've been in emergencies like that where kids have passed out. One kid had been in a car wreck earlier, and the doctor had cleared him, and then he just went into total convulsions and seizures
Oh,
at HEB Stadium at a playoff game. And man, your brain does not function correctly. That's when you pull out the flip chart.
right,
You go, this is what I'm supposed to do. Here's the
right.
cash for helping out. This is where we talk to them, call 911, do this. Because if you wait until that moment to try to figure out what to do, I promise you, your brain will be in shock.
Right. And that's why we have the lists. And that's why we do all this stuff ahead of time.
That's right. That's exactly right. And it helped me. Hopefully, this will help other people as well. Okay. And I hate to even bring this one up because it's such a scary thought, but situational awareness. It's not a fun one to talk about, but where are the exits from the stadium? Where is cover and concealment if necessary, if there's a school shooter? Where's the ambulance located? What will you do if the group has to move somewhere quickly? If it's a weather situation or someone says they have a firearm, there's 1,000. We could go what ifs forever, or any other emergency. Do you know how to move there? That's the first thing I always did with those maps. I would sit down and spend about 15 minutes seeing where's the closest exits from this stadium. Do I exit out the bottom of the stands? Do I go to the track and exit? And I worked all that out in my mind, and then I conveyed it to my staff and my band parent president, who always traveled with us. They always traveled and helped out. They were like an extra staff member, you know. And so
Again, Mike, it's one of those things, growing up as a kid in Oklahoma, we had tornado drills, legit tornado drills.
yeah,
Where do we go? What do we, move, get under the deck, whatever it is that we had to do. And everybody likes to laugh and everybody likes to go, this is silly. It is until it's not.
that's right. That's right.
And so somebody has to have the wherewithal to say, in this scenario, what do we do? And make a plan.
Yeah. And I know we're all tied up into getting drill on the field and learning stand tunes, but practice with your band during rehearsal how to get into the stands, how to line up, how do we do this, exactly what the procedure is. And then as we get them in the stands and practice that a couple of times, then I practice this moment. I tell them verbatim, I said, the scenario is this. There's a school shooter over by the concession stands. Okay. And so we're practicing. This is a drill. Said we're going to practice getting out of our home stands as quickly as possible. And here's the area where you meet beneath all these pine trees in this corner by Antley Road. And they knew exactly what to do. And then we would practice that. We would say, okay, now efficiently, quickly, with no one being I guess, just be precise in your movement. No one's panicking. Just move quickly and efficiently and go to there. And we would time them like NASCAR, say, how fast does it take us to get there? And we'd leave all our equipment in the stands, so they would just hustle back there and then we'd hustle back in the stands. We'd practice it till finally it became like they knew what to do. So if we were at an away game, I wouldn't bring that up every away game because I don't know. I guess I probably should have. But, at away games, at least I knew where I was going to tell the kids because they had two options. We exit underneath the stands or off the track. Those are the only two options. So they knew if I said, there's a situation, we've got to exit as quickly as possible off the track. And every kid in the band knew they put down their equipment, they could move. We never had to enact that, but it sure made me feel better knowing that things can happen. So that's a tough thing to talk about, but yeah.
Less tough to talk about. Lightning strikes.
Yes.
It happens all the time now. You have to, it's great that your organization knows what to do in that event because it happens a lot.
Yeah.
How to get under the stands.
Yeah. And what to do with all our equipment during that. Okay.
Right.
The next thing would be have a cheat sheet for you and the other directors or the drum majors with a list of the stand tunes and tempo markings so you can effectively work through those during the game with ease. Make sure because, we don't want to get in a situation. Have we played this? Have we played that? I don't know. Did we play that? No, we stopped because the ref can't. It gets really weird. So we had just a little checklist that we'd go through. And this is an important one to me. I think it is to most band directors. Make sure the band knows who and when controls when stand tunes need to be stopped in mid-performance.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times, some kid will get injured on the field, so half the band starts screaming, stop, 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 stop. It just sounds stupid.
Right.
It's like, no, we always have one staff member's always watching the field, so immediately they'll turn to the drum major, stop the band. And so they'll stop, and then we'll be quiet and kind of wait for that. Or I've had situations where, coaches have yelled out things to stop, or the fans have yelled out, stop, 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 stop. And half the band will stop and we just sound like crap. You know what I mean? And I'm all for being respectful. My son played football all the way through his senior year, varsity player. So I understand the whole field injury thing, but we can do this in a professional manner.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be people screaming at us to stop like we're some kind of annoyance. Let them scream. We can't control them, but we have a system in place. Staff member sees something, they turn to head drum major, stop the band. Boom, we stop. To watch for the cutoff.
Right.
Your job's to watch for the cutoff. Seems like a little thing, but it kind of adds that extra layer of sophistication to your band. This is a one that sometimes we forget, especially as younger teachers. Confirm your bus reservation. Do this 2 days before the trip so adjustments can be made if needed. I don't know how many times I've gone up there like on the Wednesday. Well, Mr. Lunny, I don't think we'll have enough drivers. You're like,
Oh,
okay, so we start working on things and figuring out what we're going to do. But if you waited till Friday, they've got a million things on their plate too. You think your band schedule's busy. You tried running a bus barn
right.
with 50 routes, or whatever, 50 drivers. So check with them. Check in with any chaperones that you have traveling with you. Perhaps I always like to do meeting with what I called my head chaperone, the one that kind of took care of getting all the chaperones, and then
Right.
communicate with them anything that's different. They knew the packet, but anything that might be different, like we're going to eat at this barbecue place instead of eating at the stadium. Pass all that on to the chaperones. Let the chaperones know. They all need to know exactly the same thing I talked about contacting the admin. Who do they contact? Do they go straight to my phone? Does it go to another staff member? Does it go to the head chaperone? Whatever the policy is, just make sure everyone knows so you don't have chaperones the day on Friday going, what do I do? Yeah, it's like, and they have to explain it to every chaperone. Okay. So kind of keep that in mind that if you say it once to the whole group or to someone to pass it on, it's a lot easier than trying to explain it to every chaperone. Because again, what you assume as being common sense, that's the first time they might have been on a crazy bus load of freshman boys.
Right.
How do they handle discipline? How far do they handle discipline? What is within their control? When do they call you? Those are all important items.
Agree.
Yeah. Next thing, this seems real obvious, but a water plan for the students. Do they bring jugs? Do you bring big giant water coolers? We have bottled water that's iced down? Who hands out the water? Are they responsible for that? Meal snack arrangements. Do you feed them in third quarter? I did with a smaller band. My band, as I got to bigger schools, it wasn't very efficient. It like took more than a quarter to feed them. So I was like, this doesn't make sense. We got to play. We got to do something. Communicate third quarter break policy.
Right.
Yeah, some bands take third quarter off. I've done both, third quarter off, third quarter play, and all kinds of hybrids in between. Just so everyone knows what's going on. Here's one that's kind of old school, but still exists, even to my last year teaching. Do your band officers go over to meet with the other band's officers during third quarter? I finally we had so many officers, I had to put a stop to it. I said, I know, guys, but you missed the whole third quarter, and I've got 30 of my band students on the other
Right.
side, and y'all are just walking around, and it said, I like the PR, but we'll go. Every director has to do what they feel is right. If you're in a small school with 3 band officers, I think that's probably pretty cool. Have a little gift for the other band or something. Yeah, I think that's really kind of cool. But when you get up to larger organizations, it's not very logistically favorable.
Right. Right. Hey, band.
Yeah, that's right. My name's Mike, and I'm the 15th member of the load crew. I load the plume box. Yay, plume box. Yeah. Yeah. And the kids have fun with that, and I don't deny them the fun of having it, but you can't send all your better players away from the bandstand for a whole quarter,
Right.
And again, with the chaperones, who's doing attendance on the bus? Make sure it's an adult. I've got a great story about a student doing attendance, but we won't go into how I left that student behind in Sweetwater. I had to turn around and go back and get him. That was my very first bus trip ever as a band director, and I left Jennifer, the tuba player, on the steps at Sweetwater High School. Plus, how do you forward information on the roll call? Is it a text? Is it by walkie-talkie? You put bus list on each bus. I put all the materials in a big satchel bag. So they've got like their their roll call, pens, pencils, first aid kit. They just pick up bus one. And then when I know all those are gone from my office, that they're on the buses. And again, kind of I mentioned this earlier, but how are you getting in and out of the stands safely with no damage to instruments? Practices during a normal rehearsal. It is well worth the time. You'll think
Right.
you're wasting your time, but man, there's nothing more embarrassing than getting, let's say, I bring the band, we go to Vernon, Texas, and then no one knows which side to enter the deal. They're entering backwards. Kids are stepping over each other, and everything's wrong. And I say that because that happened at Vernon, Texas, with my Wiley band, and there's like, oh man, I should have taken time. I forgot. I didn't take time to do this in rehearsal. Not their fault, my fault. Okay. And this is really a big list, and it's really too many items to cover for one person. I mean, you could, if you don't sleep, use staff if available or other adults to help cover this. The first game at home and the first away game is always crazy.
Right.
No matter how much you plan, man, the Mike Tyson quote still comes into play. We all know it. Okay. It does get easier as the season continues, so much so that by playoffs, it's almost like I just show up and get on the bus. It's like everything
Right.
is in motion. And we had a good football team at Wiley. So there was years I had 16 football games. By game 16 on December 23rd at AT&T Stadium, pretty much everyone showed up, and we just got on the bus, and everyone knew exactly what they were supposed to do so we can enjoy it.
Right.
And I'd like to kind of close this up with the fact that something we tend to forget. Try to enjoy the evening. I know it's hard, despite the craziness of logistics. We as directors, for the most part, we don't enjoy the games simply due to the workload.
Right.
I love
So much going on.
Yeah, I love band. I love football. I don't love the combination of the two sometimes, but we've got to remember that this is the most important band activity for many of our students. It might be
Right.
the thing we dread the most is hauling the band to go somewhere. But for all those kids that work hard to learn their contest show and do the work necessary for the band, they do it so they can travel with their friends and ride the bus and sing stupid songs and drink cokes and hang out and the things kids do, and they'll do
Right.
that for us. So I like to think of it as like a kind of like poker chips. I don't enjoy the game per se, but when I create a positive experience for the kids, then it's like gathering poker chips.
Right.
I'm gathering poker chips from the kids, and then when I really need them to work hard in a rehearsal, I feel like I can push those poker chips back over and say, hey, these are all the things we've done to make this a cool experience. We've got to get this figured out today.
Right.
Plus, we get to show off our band in public. What greater audience? I mean, my orchestra and choir friends, I know they laugh at us as well. They should, because of our crazy marching band stuff.
Right.
But man, they would dream of performing at AT&T Stadium in front of 15,000 people.
Exactly.
Think about that. So at the state championship game, we get to show them off. Try to live in the positive on that.
That's cool.
Try to live
Good
in the
thought.
positive.
So you said that in a great way. I want to say this as kind of a summary as well. I don't think there's anybody I know that enjoys looking ignorant,
Oh God, yes,
especially in public,
yes,
especially in front of the kids that you're trying to lead.
hmm
And so much, if you want a fast way to do that, don't plan.
yeah, that's right. And in front
If-
of all those public people sitting next
Right.
to the band, and they're looking like, what the heck?
And your administration.
Yeah, they're all on the track staring at the band, going, wow.
What have we done?
Yeah, they'll have tears in their eyes, not for good reasons.
But it's so preventable.
Mhm.
Listen, I realize the first time is the first time, but if you've got a list of things to look at and to check off, and Mike, I'm going to be transparent with everybody. We kind of did this on purpose right now because as this will air,
Yeah,
everybody's getting ready for that first game.
that's right.
Download this list. Look smart.
Yeah,
And it's not even about you looking smart. It's about your band looking
Looking
the best it
professional.
can possibly. Yeah.
yeah, they look professional, man. And the
So,
audience,
cool.
your town looks at them and goes, "We're proud of our band." Instead of seeing this big,
That's our
anthill,
band.
Yeah, this big anthill, kids crawling all over each other, running around, leaving to go get cokes, screaming, yelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
So
and it's worth the time to take an entire period of band and go over
yeah.
all of this with your band kids. Take the whole period and say, this is what we're doing today, guys. That's more important than adding 4 more drill sets.
So director friends, after you practice the Star Spangled Banner and your school song, take a moment, download this list, and just at least consider the points,
Yes.
and find a way to make this the best experience for your kids that you possibly can. There's always extenuating, there's always unforeseen, but if you've got a plan, those are fewer, far between, and much less stressful.
Yes.
So, hey man, thanks for the list. That's awesome.
Hey, it was fun. I don't know if lists are fun, but I feel like this is really important, And to me, I'm so
Well,
OCD. I'm a man of list.
I'm going to go have a staff meeting, see if I can haze some of the. No, I
Give
hope
them
you
their
have
new
a great.
bright pink shirts.
This is just for the new guys.
Just for the
So-
new guys, so we know where the idiots are.
All right, brother. Well, you have a great week. Go out there, spread the
will.
gospel.
I will. See you later, Derek. Bye.
All right, man. Talk soon.